He waited 999 years for evolution, only to fail at the last 1%. Now he's been reborn as the weakest baby dragon. Can the weakest baby dragon become the Dragon King?
A violent storm turned the sea as giant waves crashed against each other, rising and falling with highly destructive force. Lightning repeatedly tore through the dark sky, illuminating the absolute chaos below in brief flashes of blinding light. In the middle of this battlefield, a brave warrior stood his ground against a dark, towering beast. Despite his determination, the enemy's spear proved far too powerful. The man suddenly flew through the air while holding his heavily enchanted weapon. With one desperate final effort, he pushed forward and fiercely drove the sharp blade straight into the shining crystals situated on top of the giant dragon's head, shattering the surrounding magical energy. The monstrous figure radiated a dangerous aura as beams of light shot out from its glowing red eyes. The impact triggered a violent explosion of reddish crystals that scattered across the battlefield. Even though he was fatally injured, the protagonist forced himself to rise slightly, a blood-stained smile forming on his pale, exhausted face. Through the smoke, his defeated enemy looked surprisingly satisfied with this incredible duel, though his massive hands were completely broken from the clash. The dying warrior watched closely, thinking about his impending divine ascension that was now permanently ruined, filling his remaining thoughts with deep, bitter hatred toward this tragic conclusion of his life. His mind drifted back to the beautiful blue dragon that had needed only one more year to complete its ultimate celestial ascension. Now that giant creature lay utterly defeated on the ground, never imagining that it would make the fatal mistake of destroying its own vessel. Filled with immense fury, the beast questioned everything. The warrior, now falling onto his knees, was mocked as a helpless fool for his reckless actions. In its floating dragon form, the angry creature demanded to know what he had gained from all this destruction. Yet, the man calmly spoke with his enemy, explaining he only acted to repay a kindness received long ago. As he turned his face toward the storm-filled sky, he made it clear that this alone had been his final wish. At that moment, a mysterious voice echoed from nowhere, asking about a true name for the dragon. The entity responded with a sudden glow, questioning what name the distant voice was referring to. In the very next instant, a massive fiery explosion erupted from the water, consuming everything around it in a massive wave of absolute destruction. From the darkness that followed, a spiritual figure slowly emerged into an endless, empty void. The floating soul looked around in pure confusion, entirely uncertain whether this reality was real. Even after such a catastrophic confrontation, the floating spirit could somehow still feel its own heartbeat. Despite losing its core source of energy, there was still some power remaining within its body. The being questioned where it had been brought, declaring that sealing its power would not be enough to make it surrender. Refusing to accept this strange fate, the spiritual entity gathered what remained of its strength, desperate for one final effort. It focused intensely, channeling all its remaining internal energy into a single point to make a fierce rebellion. With a powerful burst, it successfully shattered the magical barrier holding it in place completely. As the energy dissipated, the spirit landed heavily on the ground. It suddenly noticed that the floor beneath its feet felt very wet and cold. Turning its head to investigate the surroundings, the entity was completely stunned to see massive, towering mountains of gold and countless valuable treasures scattered in every single direction imaginable. The sheer scale of the treasure haul was overwhelming. Carefully observing the area, the entity noticed a chest overflowing with precious jewels. Right in the middle of this immense fortune, it spotted a strange ancient stone monument erected high above the coins, with mysterious words carefully carved into its smooth reflective surface. The stone message spoke of a unique treasure and wished happiness to whoever read it. It explicitly mentioned raising a child, which made the creature wonder deeply. Out of respect, the being touched the stone, but as it did, it suddenly started to realize that something felt extremely strange about its own physical form. Turning toward a reflective surface, it saw its own image and immediately sensed a massive problem. Its face looked completely different. The creature examined its new paws, surprisingly discovering that they were small, short, and covered in soft fur. Its body had magically transformed into an incredibly round and chubby little baby dragon. Still confused, it pinched its cheeks, trying to understand what was happening. Looking again at its reflection in a gold coin, the realization finally struck. It had been reborn into a much smaller body. The creature stared in disbelief, unable to accept that it had become such a weak and seemingly helpless being. Slowly, it began to understand that this strange process was what humans referred to as reincarnation. Even though it did not fully comprehend everything that had occurred, it knew it needed to adapt quickly. Deciding to focus on survival, the small creature began searching the room for anything that might help it. Realizing its previous grand form was gone, the creature decided to face reality and completely stopped resisting its current state. Accepting this new life, the tiny dragon began to wander around the massive hall. It checked the piles of treasure carefully, wondering what kind of powerful magical items were stored inside this mountain. As it examined the vast collection, it noted that the owner had an incredibly strange taste in weapons. One shield carried a petrification curse that activated simply by being looked at. Another item had the ability to throw its victim into an endless inferno of hunger, making it seem like an ancient curse. There was also a mysterious wine bottle that could steal a person's voice and bind their legs, though the creature didn't consider that dangerous. Frustration began to build as it realized most items were impractical. It wondered whether the collection had been created merely to balance opposing spiritual energies within the hall. However, its attention was suddenly drawn to a small red jewel lying among the scattered coins. Curious, the creature looked upward, wondering if the gem had fallen from above. That was when it discovered a massive chest completely filled with even more shining treasures, leaving the small creature totally stunned by the sight. Its sparkling eyes grew wide with extreme excitement as it celebrated internally, feeling as though it had just stumbled upon an incredible fortune. Looking more closely, it realized these were magical stones infused with raw elemental power. Suddenly, the tiny dragon spotted a beautiful purple jewel whose dark aura closely resembled the immense power it once possessed in life. Without any hesitation, it wrapped its small chubby paws around the purple gem and decided to keep it, holding it tightly as if it was something irreplaceable. As it examined the jewel more carefully, it noticed that a golden ornament attached to the top was getting in the way of its natural flow of ancient energy. Tilting its small head, it used both its tiny claws and teeth, struggling hard to pry the golden accessory off. It tugged with all its strength, but its small body made the task difficult. With a sudden release, the ornament came loose, causing the little dragon to lose balance and fall backward onto its back immediately. The purple gem slipped from its paws during the clumsy tumble. The tiny being lost its footing and rolled down the treasure mountain, coins scattering everywhere. After finally coming to a stop, feeling slightly bruised all over, it complained internally that its previous powerful dragon form would never have suffered from such a simple and humiliating fall. Suddenly, the entire mountain of gold began to tremble violently. Coins and jewels slid down in all directions as the ground itself shifted. The purple jewel on the floor began to glow intensely, and the creature immediately felt an overwhelming, terrifying pressure emanating from the shadows, making the air inside the grand treasure hole turn freezing cold. A sense of fear rose as a blue energy distorted the space around it, as if reality was twisting. A massive glowing portal suddenly opened nearby, spinning rapidly with violent force. Sensing immediate danger, the tiny dragon gathered its remaining courage and prepared to release its own legendary red pressure toward the mysterious and dangerous teleportation circle. The tiny creature bared its small fangs, determined to protect its precious jewel from whatever was coming through the portal. But before it could unleash its red aura, a sharp golden claw slowly emerged from within the swirling energy. The sheer size of that single claw carried a clear and unmistakable intent to strike down anything. A massive blue eye appeared inside the portal, observing the tiny creature closely with a heavy, unyielding gaze. Suddenly, an immense golden dragon stepped completely out from the swirling portal and stood directly before the small being. The legendary beast radiated a majestic light that instantly illuminated every single corner of the grand, ancient treasure hall. The tiny creature faced the giant dragon boldly, wondering if this grand entrance was merely a cheap attempt to intimidate a small and innocent newborn hatchling. With a determined expression, it prepared itself for a fierce fight, letting out what it intended to be a terrifying roar, making it clear that it would not surrender its treasure. The golden dragon paused, clearly confused by the tiny noise. Moving closer, it realized the creature was just a hatchling. With a gentle motion, it used its massive tail to lift the tiny being off the ground. Suspended high in the air on the tail, the helpless hatchling felt completely terrified, trembling with tears in its eyes. At that exact moment, a soft light began to glow, and a calm, soothing female voice filled the space. The golden dragon's massive form began to shift gracefully, transforming into a beautiful woman with long golden hair and a lovely dress. She gently held the scared little creature in her arms with a warm, reassuring expression. The beautiful golden-hair woman gently introduced herself as Christina to the confused baby creature. Her voice sounded incredibly calm and warm in this cold hall, comforting his soul. While the little dragon was still trying to process everything around him, he silently wondered if she was actually giving him a meaningful new name to carry. Christina carefully placed him back on the wet ground and observed his physical condition for a quiet moment. Nodding softly, she checked whether he was completely all right before mentioning that he must be quite hungry. The tiny being paused, remembering that in his past life as a warrior, he could easily go months without food. But things were completely different now in this fragile body, and an overwhelming hunger suddenly struck him with massive force. His little stomach let out a loud, unmistakable growl that echoed in the empty room. Seeing his desperate need, Christina raised her white hand and used her magical power to summon a warm milk bottle from thin air. The mysterious baby bottle materialized instantly, appearing solid and radiating a comforting warmth within her gentle grasp. Smiling softly at the small dragon, she prepared to open the container, her deliberate movements remaining slow and reassuring to avoid scaring him. The hungry creature watched her actions closely, his tiny tail twitching with great anticipation and curiosity. As soon as the plastic cap was completely removed, a rich, soft, and inviting scent instantly spread through the cool air. The little creature's sharp senses immediately picked up the sweet, familiar smell, causing a bright flicker of pure joy to appear in his wide eyes. He quickly realized that the delicious scent was that of warm milk. His mouth watered uncontrollably as his chubby body reacted instinctively to the wonderful promise of fresh food. Despite his desperate hunger, his mind became conflicted, and he hesitated to take a step forward. A part of him clung to his former pride as a mighty warrior, making the small dragon want to drink, but afraid to approach. Seeing his clear hesitation, Christina assumed he refused the milk and slowly began to move the bottle away. The moment the food started leaving his reach, sheer panic set in. Forgetting his pride, the little creature leapt forward with all his strength, grabbing the bottle tightly with his paws and eagerly drinking the sweet liquid without thinking. Christina watched him quietly, her soft expression noting how truly famished the young hatchling must have been. To the little dragon, the rich drink felt completely unfamiliar at first, but as he tasted it properly, immense surprise filled his soul. He had never imagined milk could taste this good, lowering his gaze shyly under her focused attention. Christina referred to him softly as a little one, her kind tone filled with endless warmth. After a brief pause, she extended her hand toward his round body, offering him an important choice. She spoke gently about the vast world outside, mentioning that it was filled with many incredible wonders and delicious food waiting to be experienced together. The tiny being did not fully understand every word she said, but he easily grasped the core essence of her speech. He realized that she was warmly inviting him to leave this vault and go with her. He thought about it carefully, acknowledging that she did not seem like a bad person after saving his life today from danger. He looked around the massive hall, noting that this cold place offered nothing but useless piles of gold. More importantly, his newborn dragon body was currently weak and highly vulnerable. Surviving alone in such an unprotected condition would be extremely dangerous for him, forcing his logical mind to weigh the practical benefits of accepting her generous offer immediately. After a moment of silent consideration, the small creature finally decided to compromise with reality. He slowly pushed the purple gem forward, convincing himself that this choice had nothing to do with the sweet milk. Stepping closer to Christina, he reached out with his tiny claws and tightly grabbed her long dress, indicating he would go along. Seeing this intelligent gesture, Christina's beautiful face brightened noticeably, clearly pleased with his final decision. She gently leaned down, scooping his small, round body up into her arms with great care. Holding the creature securely against her lap, she expressed quiet gratitude, thanking him for surviving the ordeal and finally being born into this new world. Hearing her thanks, the dragon felt confused but realized her emotional words belonged to the original soul of this body. He felt a deep sense of gratitude toward that departed spirit for this second chance. With that peaceful thought, the little creature raised his paws and formally handed the precious purple stone over to his new guardian as a gift. Christina looked at the sparkling jewel for a quiet moment, wondering if she should keep it safe on his behalf. Instead of answering her, the tiny being moved closer and snuggled against her chest, wanting to comfort his guardian. She smiled warmly, hugging his small body securely as she turned around and finally carried him out of the vault. Resting comfortably on her steady shoulder, the small creature looked ahead and reflected on everything that had happened. In his heart, he made a firm promise that he would grow much stronger to ensure no one could ever harm him again. He resolved to take full advantage of every single opportunity that came his way during this reincarnation. Sometime later, the scene shifted to a peaceful bedroom where the little creature was sleeping soundly. He lay directly on top of a soft bed, completely surrounded by scattered, shimmering jewels. His small chubby body rested comfortably under the dim light, and he slept heavily for days, thoroughly exhausted from the intense events of his magical rebirth. Gradually, a full month passed by, and the young dragon woke up feeling completely refreshed. Now sitting quietly on the bed, the small creature decided to close his eyes and begin to gather energy. Even though this current body was totally different from his previous human form, he had finally become accustomed to its unique internal paths. As he focused inward to guide his spiritual power, he suddenly noticed Christina standing nearby, casually performing high-level magic to organize the room. Watching her control the glowing particles effortlessly, he realized that advanced sorcery was simply a natural part of this world. This discovery meant he no longer needed to train his traditional human energy center anymore. He could focus entirely on cultivating his lower core instead, which gave him a natural advantage that left him quite satisfied with his peaceful life. However, despite these amazing benefits, one constant problem bothered him. A strange, glowing little light spirit with delicate wings hovered nearby at all times, staring directly down at him without ever leaving his side. The small dragon couldn't help but glare back at this annoying flying observer, growing increasingly frustrated by its constant presence. The tiny entity never seemed to disappear, not even for a single moment during his private meditation sessions. It even floated closer to poke his nose playfully, making him wonder if the creature ever slept at all. He remembered that Christina had summoned this monitoring spirit out of deep concern for his safety, but its presence created a difficult obstacle. Because of it, he couldn't perform any physical training without being noticed. Frustrated, the young dragon closed his eyes and decided to gather energy once again, focusing his growing power directly within his chest. He had even tried to sneak away from the bedroom once, hopping carefully across the floor to move quietly without attracting the spirit's attention. But every time he attempted to escape, the annoying light entity would immediately fly out to alert Christina. She would quickly come inside and stop him before he could get anywhere near the door. Through continuous secret meditation, his internal energy kept growing steadily, becoming stronger with each passing day. Finally, with a sharp look in his eyes, he decided to try a direct approach. He resolved to gather his gathered mana and use a powerful teleportation spell to escape her sight. I know it is still way too early to make my move. Before taking any big risks, I really need to deal with this annoying little fly buzzing around me. My eyes lock onto the small winged spirit floating nearby. I definitely need to find a smart way to get rid of this annoying pest very soon now. To make things worse, my tiny mouth is making it impossible to speak a single word clearly. It is so frustrating because I cannot fix this until my body grows up a bit more. Watching this silly spirit constantly copy my every move only makes me feel super irritated and deeply embarrassed about my current baby dragon state. I try to glare at the copycat spirit, but suddenly my senses detect a familiar and powerful wave of mana approaching. I quickly go on high alert. Christina floats in gracefully, looking calm and beautiful as always. She immediately comes over to check on me, making sure her favorite little baby dragon has been behaving well today too. The moment I recognize her, I run straight toward her as fast as my tiny legs can carry me. Do not misunderstand, I am only doing this because I know it is finally lunchtime. However, Christina completely misinterprets my rush, thinking I am just super happy to see her, and she gives me a very gentle, warm smile. She looks at me warmly, wondering if she should feed me some delicious meat today. But as she gently opens my mouth wide, she remembers I do not even have any teeth yet. Looking at my excited face, she mistakenly believes I understand her words, quietly praising me for being such a clever and exceptionally bright little cub. I cannot help but sigh in my head, this is not some natural genius. I have simply lived way longer than she could ever guess. Still, my acting is top-notch, and she does not suspect a single thing. I keep playing the role of a sweet, harmless baby beast perfectly, so she stays completely off her guarded state. Christina gently picks me up now, thinking I want some cuddles. In reality, my eyes are only searching for the milk bottle. But I happily let myself snuggle against her soft shoulder anyway. I know that keeping this powerful guardian happy is absolutely crucial for my survival in this strange and totally unfamiliar new fantasy world right now. As she cradles me, her beautiful blue eyes melt with pure affection. She holds me close, whispering how incredibly cute I am while I rest peacefully on her lap. After a moment, she finally remembers it is feeding time. Without waiting, she summons my favorite drink and brings the warm bottle right to my tiny mouth very quickly. The moment I taste the sweet milk she gives me, I feel completely satisfied. I drink it down eagerly, thinking all my hard acting was totally worth it. But as I gulp it down, I feel a strange and warm energy flowing through my tiny body, though I still cannot quite understand what kind of magic is happening. While I finish my meal, Christina sits comfortably beside me and starts chatting about her day-to-day. She talks about all sorts of things, never realizing I understand every single word. Honestly, I do not care much for her long stories, but I quickly realize she just wants a quiet, cute companion to listen to her lonely thoughts. This habit of hers is actually super helpful, letting me learn so much about this new world. Over time, I have gathered enough random facts to understand almost everything around me. I peacefully listen to her voice, taking mental notes of the useful information while pretending to be just a sleepy, innocent little baby dragon on her lap. Christina looks down at me with a playful smile, clearly planning to ask for something. She checks if I finished my milk, and the moment she sees the empty bottle, I get a very bad feeling. Her eyes sparkle with mischief as she gently asks me to show her a super cute pose for a special treat. I feel a sudden wave of irritation. Even though I lived for nearly 1,000 years as a mighty being, I now have to act like a silly little pet just to get my lunch. But looking at her hopeful face, I know I have no choice. I reluctantly prepare my tiny body to do what she wants. 260 to 280s. With a deeply defeated sigh, I force my tiny body to cooperate. I let out a soft, incredibly adorable squeak, telling myself I am simply paying her back for the great food. Christina instantly squeals with joy, happily petting my head and praising me for being the most precious little creature in the entire universe right now. My face burns with intense embarrassment, and I quickly hide myself deep in her arms. I tell myself that refusing her request would just be rude. She continues gently stroking my back, her soft voice filled with warmth as she wishes for me to always be happy, making me feel a bit touched by her genuine kindness. At this point, I have to admit she is a genuinely kind and loving person. Soon, she leaves for her duties, and I flop onto the floor, wondering how to repay her. My mind wanders back to a past memory. A beautiful white fox once walked up to discuss my training. In that memory, the elegant fox walked up to me, asking what I was doing. I told her simply that my only goal was to ascend. She smiled softly and questioned if that path really brought me happiness. I replied that we just had different goals, calling her a silly creature who did not understand my great ambition. I remembered being so annoyed by her constant staring, demanding to know what she wanted. But she just kept looking at me with a deep, quiet gaze, as if trying to see right through me. Then, she asked me a strange question about whether I had ever felt true joy even once in my entire life. She asked if I even know what it felt like to be loved by someone. I dismissed her words immediately, telling her such soft emotions were completely useless to me. My destiny was to become a legendary dragon. I even reminded her that she was close to becoming a celestial fox, so she should focus on that. However, her next words caught me completely off guard. Looking at me with a serious face, she confessed that she had no interest in becoming a celestial fox, choosing to become a human instead. I was completely shocked, unable to understand why she would throw away such a glorious and powerful destiny for something so simple. She simply smiled at my confusion. She revealed that she had found someone she truly loved, who loved her back just the way she was. To her, that beautiful connection was worth giving up everything. She told me that when you love someone, you naturally want to return that warmth and give them your whole heart. She gently hoped that I would understand this feeling one day, but I just thought her ideas were incredibly foolish. I warned her that if she chose to become a human, she could never return to our sacred realm. Even so, I smiled slightly and wished her a happy life, hoping she would get what she wanted. Hearing my words, the white fox suddenly blushes deeply, looking incredibly shy and embarrassed. She quickly snaps at me, loudly calling me a dense, foolish dragon who understands absolutely nothing about a woman's true feelings before she turns around. In her heart, though, she still feels an immense, silent gratitude for all the kind things I have ever done here. Even as she prepares to depart, her thoughts remain focused on our shared past. She takes a deep breath, looking back at me one last time with a mixture of sadness and affection. With a final, quiet sigh, the beautiful celestial fox turns away and officially leaves my life forever, stepping forward into her newly chosen human future right now. I try to stand up, but my tiny, weak legs shake uncontrollably on the hard floor. Christina walks in with a gentle smile, asking if I missed her. But as she looks down, her eyes widen in pure surprise. She notices that her little baby dragon is already trying to walk all on his own now. I take a few shaky steps forward to show off my progress, hoping this will make her realize I do not need constant watching anymore. However, her reaction is definitely not what I expected. Instead of being relieved, her eyes instantly fill with tears of joy, looking at me like I just did something historic today. Watching my tiny steps, Christina is incredibly touched by how fast I am growing. Before I can even react, she scoops me up into her arms, hugging me tightly with overwhelming love. She squeezes me close, gushing about how adorable I am, and I immediately realize my plan to get some space failed miserably again. As she holds me, she suddenly remembers she brought a special treat. She reaches into her bag, searching for something soft enough for a dragon with no teeth. My curiosity peaks as she pulls out a legendary phoenix egg. I stare in shock as she reveals several of these glowing, golden eggs from her bag. The rare eggs radiate a soft, warm light that fills the entire room with powerful magic. I can feel the intense energy humming inside the shells, indicating the legendary creatures waiting to hatch. Looking closely at these glowing treasures, I realize a legendary phoenix is truly an immortal creature, highly resembling the vermilion bird from my past life. According to ancient myths, they are born from intense flames rather than normal processes. My dragon eyes immediately lock onto these mysterious, glowing treats sitting right inside Christina's heavy travel bag. Without hesitation, I grab the bag strap with my tiny paws and drag it away. Moving a short distance from her, I sit down comfortably on the hard floor to examine the loot. I carefully reach inside and pull out one specific glowing egg, holding it between my small claws to inspect the rich magical energy humming within. Christina watches me from afar with a gentle expression, totally touched seeing her baby beast trying to feed himself. Ignoring her gaze, I focus entirely on my goal and start peeling the hard shell open. My tiny claws work efficiently as I crack the protective layer, ready to taste whatever magical substance is waiting hidden inside. I raise the cracked treat up, opening my mouth wide as I prepare to take my very first bite. The moment the rich flavor hits my tongue, my eyes widen instantly in absolute shock. This incredible taste is unlike anything else. I happily show a face of pure, heavenly satisfaction because this rare meal is incredibly delicious. I quickly devour the whole thing, completely finishing my first egg while getting crumbs all over my face. Christina giggles softly, explaining they were roasted in dragon fire, and then she places a fresh bottle of warm milk right beside me. She reminds me to drink slowly and not overeat, even though I am a growing cub. The incredibly soft texture melts in my mouth like a sweet cloud, making me instinctively reach for another treat. However, my attention is suddenly drawn to one peculiar egg standing out from the rest. This red object is noticeably harder and heavier, causing me to pause briefly before deciding to leave it alone for a later time. I decide to keep enjoying the softer ones first, stuffing my face happily. But very soon, my tiny stomach reacts to the sudden intake of rich magical food. I end up rolling onto my back, feeling absolutely stuffed and totally unable to take another single bite, while my overprotective guardian laughs softly at my silly state. Christina gently pets my full belly, suggesting I take a nice rest before she heads out to handle her business. The moment she leaves the room, I slowly roll over and look at the remaining pile. I honestly cannot believe I ate so much food, realizing it will definitely take some time to digest this massive power. Suddenly, a wave of intense drowsiness washes over my small body, and my heavy eyes begin closing on their own. Before I can even fight it, I fall fast asleep right on the floor. I drift off peacefully with a very full belly, completely unaware of the strange dreams waiting for me in the deep darkness. In the shadows of my deep sleep, a pair of glowing red eyes stares directly at me with intense power. That mysterious image lingers in my mind until I slowly wake up, feeling a bit dazed. I stretch my small paws out, letting out a tiny yawn as I gradually return to reality from my deep slumber. Looking around the room, I notice the place is completely empty because Christina is nowhere to be seen. However, my gaze quickly shifts to a nearby basket, and I am shocked to see that the eggs have magically multiplied. She must have left this huge, fresh supply for me before heading out for the day. Feeling quite hungry again, I wipe the drool from my mouth, knowing enough time has passed to digest my lunch. Flapping my tiny wings, I waddle toward the basket. My paws firmly touch that hard, reddish egg I set aside earlier. Staring at it seriously, I decide right now is the perfect time to eat it. Since the shell is extremely tough, I realize a normal bite will not work. I close my eyes and immediately start gathering dark, potent energy deep within my core. A faint purplish electrical aura quickly spreads across my entire body, showcasing a terrifying level of magical strength that completely defies my current small, cute dragon appearance. With my power fully charged, I throw a massive, explosive punch directly at the stubborn shell. The heavy impact creates a bright burst of sparks flying everywhere. However, as the light fades, I stare in absolute disbelief. The egg is completely untouched, remaining perfectly smooth without a single scratch or mark on its red surface. The intense recoil sends my tiny body flying backward, causing me to land roughly on the floor. I lick my slightly sore paw, feeling deeply frustrated by my failure. A mighty 1,000-year-old soul cannot be defeated by a simple meal. Determined to crush it, I decide to try again, using even more destructive force. Concentrating deeper than before, I begin focusing all my available magical energy directly between my hands to form a glowing sphere. I take a powerful leap into the air, gaining massive momentum. Suspended midair, the giant shadow of a ferocious dragon suddenly appears behind me, amplifying my intense desire to smash this stubborn target completely. With a loud roar, I release a massive pillar of pure, destructive energy crashing straight down onto the egg. The violent impact literally shakes the entire room. I fall back to the ground, panting heavily and feeling completely exhausted. I lie there quietly, praying that my strongest attack actually managed to break the impossible shell. As the thick dust finally settles, I notice a tiny crack successfully forming on the hard surface. I celebrate internally, thinking my awesome power won. I reach out with my tiny hand to pull the cracked piece away. But before I can touch it, the shell unexpectedly begins splitting wide open all on its own from within. I completely freeze, staring with wide, shocked eyes at the strange scene unfolding before me. A bizarre force pushes outward and suddenly, a tiny, incredibly cute white bird pops right out of the broken shell. The newborn let out a soft, cheerful chirp, settling down peacefully directly beneath my hovering paw without showing any fear. I stare in utter confusion, wondering why a regular bird was hiding inside a phoenix egg. Slowly, I lift my paw and gently pat the newborn's soft head. The tiny creature responds with a happy chirp, fluttering into the air to fly around me playfully before rubbing its face against my cheek to show deep affection. The moment the creature touches me, I instantly recognize a very familiar aura. My eyes widen in complete shock once again. Suddenly, the tiny bird begins to glow brightly, radiating a powerful mixture of intense fire energy and my own distinct magical signature. This little creature actually possesses a unique, double magical trait born from us both.